All right, I pulled everything together across the next-gen stats full season and split files from 2021 through 2025. Your 2025 receiving environment, offensive line pass protection and pressure attribution, and the 2025 formation and personnel usage, plus all 22 film sample notes. What follows is the why it moved story. What is real versus what is noise, and what I would recommend doing with it. What changed in 2025 is not accuracy. It is the cost of the dropback. The cleanest signal across all of your files is that Justin Herbert did not suddenly lose ball placement in 2025. In fact, his accuracy indicators largely hold up. What changed is that the dropback environment became dramatically more hostile, and the offense absorbed that damage in the form of sacks and interceptions rather than simple incompletions. In the next-gen stats season summary, the move from 2024 to 2025 shows only a very small increase in completion rate, up 0.51 percentage points, and a meaningful improvement in completion percentage over expected, up 0.94. Despite that, passer rating drops by roughly 7.6 points, and expected points added per dropback collapses from 0.09 to roughly 0.016. The biggest swings come from the variables that are most destructive to expected points. Added, interceptions up by 10, and pressure-driven losses, with quarterback pressure percentage increasing by nearly 10 percentage points and sacks increasing by 13. That combination almost always produces exactly this profile. A quarterback can be on target more often, but the offense still hemorrhages value because the negative plays are drive-ending events, not just missed throws. The pass protection context is brutal, and it lines up almost perfectly with the split-level regression you are seeing. Your 2025 pass-blocking file points to a clear structural issue. The Chargers team pass-blocking efficiency sits at 80.4, ranking 30th in the league, while pressures allowed reach 253, which is worst in the league, and sacks credited to the offensive line reach 32, ranking 30th. That is not a story of Herbert having a handful of bad games. It is a season-long baseline where too many dropbacks begin in a compromised state. The quarterback pressure attribution file reinforces this conclusion. Herbert is tagged with the highest total pressure count in the dataset at 255, ranking first overall. While there is a meaningful quarterback responsibility component, 43 pressures attributed to the quarterback himself, or roughly 16.9%. The majority of the pressure load remains driven by the offensive line and tight ends. The positional blame splits are especially telling. Both interior and edge positions are major contributors, with right guard and left tackle as the largest single pressure buckets, and center and right tackle also playing significant roles. That matters because interior pressure is the kind that destroys intermediate timing, compresses the pocket immediately, and forces early bailouts that cascade into sacks, interceptions, and negative expected points added. This is exactly why your 2024 to 2025 split deltas look the way they do. When pressure rises without blitzing, quarterbacks do not just struggle against pressure in the abstract. They struggle specifically in non-blitz situations because defenses are able to keep 7 defenders in coverage while still collapsing the pocket with a 4-man rush. That dynamic is the most predictive line in your deltas. On no-blitz dropbacks, interceptions jump from 2 to 8 with essentially the same number of attempts, 345 to 347, while passer rating collapses from 101.8 to 89.2. At the same time, quarterback pressure percentage on no blitz plays spikes from 29.3% to 43.3%. That pattern is textbook four-man pressure getting home while coverage disguises remain intact, which compresses windows and forces late or baited throws. The turnover spike itself maps to a very specific cluster of situations: no play action, slot and intermediate targets, and long-developing dropbacks. If you are looking for the most actionable, where do we stop the bleeding area, this is it. In no-play action situations, attempts rise from 345 to 382, interceptions explode from 1 to 11. Passer rating drops from 94.2 to 86.8, and quarterback pressure percentage jumps from 32.1% to 42.4%. This is the single largest interception driver in your year-to-year deltas and strongly suggests that living in a straight drop-back world forced the offense to pay the protection and coverage tax in turnovers. Slot passing shows an equally loud signal. Attempts increase from 162 to 187, interceptions go from 0 to 6, and passer rating falls from 109.2 to 89.8. That is not random variance. 6 interceptions from the slot in one season typically come from inside leverage defenders undercutting outbreaking routes, robber or post-safety rotations baiting seams and digs, or hot route answers becoming predictable under pressure. The intermediate depth of target bucket is where pressure and timing collide most violently. Attempts fall from 124 to 99, yet interceptions jump from 1 to 5, and passer rating drops from 110.3 to 92.3. The loudest tell is contextual. Quarterback pressure percentage on intermediate throws surges from 27.4% to 47.5%, while average receiver separation declines from 2.8 yards to 2.4 yards. Intermediate routes require a stable platform and windows that hold for an extra beat, and in 2025, the offense lost both at the same time. Finally, long time to throw dropbacks, your passing long split, complete the picture. Attempts decline from 333 to 293, but interceptions rise from 3 to 8, and expected points added per dropback flips from plus 0.03 to minus 0.16. Quarterback pressure percentage in these situations climbs from 43.3% to 58.2%. Fewer long-developing plays were called, but the ones that remained became dramatically more dangerous, turning into high-leverage negative outcomes rather than merely stalled completions. This is the single most obvious coach it and call it differently bucket in the entire profile. When the offense asks the quarterback to hold the ball in 2025, negative outcomes occur at a much higher rate. That does not mean the quarterback suddenly cannot execute. It means the margin for error on long-developing plays has collapsed. What makes this especially important is what did not fall apart. Deep passing remains a clear strength. In 2025, the passing deep bucket still posts a 112.8 passer rating, with expected points added per dropback around 0.40, which is excellent by any standard. That matters for how you respond to the data, because it argues strongly against the lazy conclusion of stop pushing the ball downfield. The issue is not arm talent or willingness to throw it. The issue is that the offense is no longer consistently buying the time, spacing, and structural integrity required to attack the middle of the field safely. The receiving environment itself is best described as adequate but stressful, especially given the protection context. From your 2025 receiving tables and cluster profile, target outcomes are generally acceptable, but separation is not rescuing the quarterback. and the offense is living in contested windows often enough to raise volatility. Target-weighted average separation sits at 3.21 yards, down from 3.5 yards in 2024 per the season summary, while tight window throw rate is roughly 15.6% at the quarterback level. That is not catastrophic, but it is not quarterback-friendly either, and it becomes meaningfully worse when pass protection is failing and dropbacks are long. Within that environment, your top volume targets carry very different risk profiles. Keenan Allen remains a stabilizer. He owns a 26.1% target rate, 122 targets on 467 routes, with average separation of 2.6 yards and a tight window rate around 19.7%, yet still produces plus 29.8 receiving expected points added. That profile screams timing, route craft, and quarterback trust rather than space creation, and it is resilient even when conditions are poor. Quentin Johnston represents the opposite end of the spectrum. His 17.2% target rate, 84 targets on 488 routes, 2.4 yards of average separation, tight window rate around 26.2%, and deep target rate near 22.6% define inherently high-variance football. That risk multiplies when the quarterback is pressured, and the offense leans heavily on no-play action, straight drop-back concepts. Oronda Gadsden II quietly provides one of the healthiest profiles in the offense. With a 17.8% target rate, 69 targets on 388 routes, 3.2 yards of average separation, strong yards after catch over expected, and plus 15.3 receiving expected points added, he profiles as a chain-moving option that reduces the need for hope throws. Finally, Lad McConkey sits in an intriguing middle ground. He earns a 18.9% target rate, 106 targets on 562 routes, with 3.3 yards of average separation, but only plus 2.4 total receiving expected points added. That combination usually points to a usage problem, where, when, and how he is targeted, rather than a talent limitation. Taken together, this reinforces the core conclusion of your broader dataset. The quarterback, Justin Herbert, is still capable of high-level throws, especially vertically. What has changed is that the offense is forcing high-stress throws in the most fragile parts of the passing game. Long-developing, no-play action, intermediate, and slot concepts, without the protection or separation profile required to sustain them. One really important nuance from your cluster profile is the disconnect between receiver expected points added per target and team expected points added per pass. Receiver expected points added per target is positive, at roughly plus 0.113 on a target-weighted basis, while team expected points added per pass is negative at minus 0.10. That gap is essentially the mathematical fingerprint of sacks and interceptions being the true pass game killers, rather than an inability for receivers to get open. When Justin Herbert actually gets the ball out to a target, the play outcome is often fine or even good. The problem is surviving the drop back long enough to reach that target without absorbing a sack or committing a turnover. Formation and personnel usage then show you exactly where the offense is predictably losing and where it is quietly hiding its best material. Your 2025 tendency exports create a clear usage and efficiency map. 11 personnel accounts for 56.8% of plays, which is normal league usage, but it produces negative expected points added per pass at minus 0.07 and an overall expected points added ranking in the bottom third of the league. That strongly suggests the issue is not the personnel grouping itself, but that your base offense is getting solved structurally, or that your base pass protection rules are consistently failing. 21 personnel is a clear red flag. Across 120 plays, it generates -22 expected points added, with both passing and rushing contributing negatively. That outcome typically points to one of three things: a personnel tell problem that defenses are reading pre-snap, a blocking quality issue that shows up when you lean heavier, or predictability in down and distance or situation that lets defenses tee off. Regardless of the cause, this grouping is actively hurting the quarterback rather than helping him. On the other end of the spectrum, 10 personnel appears in very small volume at 50 plays, but it produces the best expected points added in the offense, ranking first. 20 personnel is also positive, ranking third. These are not samples you should blindly scale up, because small samples lie, but they do suggest that some of your change-up packages are working better than your base offense and are stressing defenses in different ways. Formation usage reinforces the same story. 3x1 formations are among your most efficient platforms, producing positive expected points added per play, while 1x3 formations carry high usage and negative expected points added per play. Several condensed or heavy looks are outright disastrous in your sample, such as 4+1 sets. This lines up exactly with what you would expect in a pressure-heavy season. Formations that help the quarterback identify coverage, manufacture free releases, and create defined reads, often 3x1 structures, tend to age better. Formations that ask the offense to win isolated matchups while protecting longer, especially in the middle of the field, tend to collapse when protection is unstable. The all-22 free hitter notes line up cleanly with the macro data and help explain why the season-level splits look the way they do. Your Texans cut-ups are only a small sample, but they are illustrative in exactly the right way. You repeatedly see run fits where the middle linebacker or force defender is completely unconflicted, no quarterback read, no run-pass option, no orbit or motion stress, and pass plays where protection is stressed without a built-in outlet or automatic answer, leading directly to sacks. That film evidence connects directly to the 2025 statistical signature. Fewer play-action reps, more straight dropback, more pressure generated without blitzing, more sacks, and more interceptions in the slot and intermediate areas. When defenses can fit the run aggressively and rush with 4, they get to sit in coverage with patience. That is exactly the environment where robber rotations, late safety movement, and inside leverage undercuts thrive. Stated plainly, Justin Herbert's 2025 strengths are real and intact. He still produces high-value deep passing when the offense gives him structure and time. His throw-for-throw accuracy actually improves, as shown by an increase in completion percentage over expected. He continues to perform well on clean dropbacks, with strong passer rating when not under pressure. None of that points to erosion of arm talent or fundamental quarterback ability. The weaknesses, however, are also real, and they are not talent-based weaknesses so much as stress response weaknesses amplified by environment. Turnovers spike sharply in pure dropback situations without play action, especially when targeting the slot and intermediate middle of the field. Long-developing dropbacks flip from marginally positive to clearly negative expected points added plays. Most importantly, the offense becomes highly vulnerable to 4-man pressure combined with coverage disguise because it does not consistently force defenders into conflict. When defenders can play fast, stay square, and react instead of choosing, the margin collapses. And that is where sacks and interceptions replace incompletions as the dominant outcomes. Recommendations that actually match your data. If I were building an action plan directly off your files, it naturally organizes into 4 lanes: protection, structure, allocation, and quarterback process. Protection has to start with treating interior pressure as the primary opponent. Your pressure attribution data and offensive line player tables point to persistent interior leakage, and the team-level metrics show the offense living near the bottom of the league in pressure allowed. This is not something you fix by telling Justin Herbert to get the ball out faster in a vacuum. You fix it by reducing how often the offense asks for long developing routes without help. That means more half-slide protections toward the weakest link, more running back chip and release responsibilities, and more shot plays that are max protect by design. The reason this matters is simple and supported by your own splits. Deep passing remains efficient when the offense actually buys the time to execute it. Structure is about rebuilding the intermediate and slot passing game with built-in conflict and leverage answers. The regression in slot and intermediate efficiency sits at the center of the 2025 interception spike. To counter that, the offense needs more concepts that actively punish robber and help defenders. Layered route structures, crossers with clear high-low rules, and spacing that makes inside undercuts costly rather than rewarded. Your formation data already tells you where this works best. 3x1 formations are one of your most efficient platforms, so that is where the intermediate menu should live. If the offense is going to lean more heavily on the quick game, as it did in 2025, it cannot devolve into predictable outs thrown into squat corners. Motion, bunch, and stack alignments should be used intentionally to manufacture free access, force defenders to declare leverage early, and restore clarity for the quarterback before the ball is snapped. Allocation should be the third lever, and this is where your data quietly points to a very fixable problem. The offense is oversnapping low-versatility tells in situations where disguise and leverage matter most. Your volatility index drag memo is identifying something real. When you pair high-snap, low two-way players in heavy or eligible formations, defenses are able to play faster because they know what the offense is not threatening. That feeds directly into the no-blitz pressure plus coverage disguise problem that shows up all over your 2025 splits. Practically, this means building more packages where run looks still carry real pass stress. Pairings like Will Dissly with Oronde Gadsden II, or back-and-slot combinations like Kimani Vidal with Lad McConkey, force defenses to hesitate rather than trigger downhill. At the same time, the worst-performing personnel groupings, most notably 21 personnel, should be treated as situational only until they can be shown not to crater expected points added. Quarterback process is the fourth lane, and the goal here is to reduce the self-inflicted slice of negative plays without neutering the offense. Even if Justin Herbert is not the primary driver of the pressure environment, your pressure attribution data still tags a meaningful quarterback responsibility component. The 2025 split profile is clear about where the worst outcomes live. Long time to throw dropbacks in situations where defenses do not blitz. That combination is highly coachable. It calls for more coverage identification built into the plan, clearer get-out rules against rotating safeties, and a more aggressive throwaway discipline when intermediate windows do not declare cleanly. The objective is not to remove aggression, but to remove late, pressured aggression in the middle of the field, which is where the damage concentrated in 2025. Finally, the volatility framing tells you what parts of the data you should trust most when making decisions. Applying your volatility concept to the next-gen stats depth splits from 2023 through 2025. Deep passing grades as the most volatile bucket due to smaller sample sizes and large rating swings. Intermediate passing is moderately volatile, while short passing is the most stable and reliable baseline. That matches both common sense and your film sample. Deep throws are where a handful of plays can swing entire outcomes, while short throws represent the offensive floor. The correct strategic response, therefore, is not stop throwing deep. It is to engineer deep shots so they do not require long, unprotected dropbacks, while stabilizing the intermediate and slot passing areas where 2025 showed the most damaging year-to-year turnover swing.